ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपगदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त श्रीराधा कान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्रीराधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. I have great pleasure to welcome all devotees on behalf of ISKCON Chennai to the 7th session of Bhagavad Gita as it is certification course. Today's chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita is entitled Knowledge of the Absolute. This is a very special chapter. Actually, we are beginning a series of special chapters. We will explain why. So here is an overview of the 18 chapters. First 6 chapters we have just completed. We learnt about the soul for the first time for most of us, that I am not the body, I am the indweller of this body. I am not the deha, I am the dehi. I am not the car, I am the driver inside. I am not the dress, I am the person wearing the dress. The soul is wearing the body as its dress. One day soul will give up this dress and take up another dress. So that we have learned. So this process we have learned, the soul is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So there is a connection that the soul is part of the Supreme. So the soul has to serve the Supreme. The business of the part is to serve the whole. You imagine any piece of machinery, it contains many nuts and bolts, and the nuts and bolts, unless they are connected to the machine, they have no meaning. If you take the nut or bolt separately, it has no meaning. Similarly, my body, the hand is a part of my body and it serves my body. But if I cut my hand off, the hand has no meaning. It can do nothing by itself. So we have learnt about the soul and its connection with the Supreme. This is supposed to lead us to meditation on Krishna, which is what we call sadhana. Meditation on Krishna does not mean closing your eyes and sitting in an isolated place. We have already learnt that. Meditation on Krishna is done by way of devotional service, because Krishna is a person. So we serve him with our devotion that leads to knowing Krishna. Now we are entering into the second 6 chapters. They are the middle 6 chapters. Here we shall be talking about Bhakti Yoga. Earlier we talked about Nishkama Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, etc. We are now going to focus on Bhakti Yoga. And through Bhakti Yoga, you will know Krishna, the absolute truth. That's why this chapter is entitled Knowledge of the Absolute Truth. Once we know Krishna, you serve him in love. Or rather, you start serving him and then you come to know Krishna. Because Krishna will not let you know about him unless he is sure that you love him. And then you will also know what are the benefits of doing so. Actually, let me tell you one secret. There is no difference between Krishna and the process of bhakti itself. These are things you will come to know deeper and deeper with the passage of time. The bhakti process itself is actually a manifestation of Krishna. In this material world, everything is temporary, transient, and it has a beginning and an end except the bhakti yoga. Now you may wonder, how do you say that bhakti yoga I am beginning now only, so there is a beginning? There you are mistaken, because bhakti is actually within you, within the soul. It is only hidden, it is only covered. All that we are going to do is we are going to expose it, because bhakti is inherent in the soul. Soul is a part and parcel of Krishna, and it loves Krishna. The part loves the whole, there is no wonder about it. So the soul has a love of Krishna inbuilt, and that bhakti itself is part of Krishna. It is Krishna's essence. So actually, bhakti is not beginning, and so it will never end. Your bhakti will only continue to grow. We are going to expose the bhakti within you, and then it will continue to grow. The last 6 chapters are what you call transcendental knowledge, that is jnana, based on the bhakti we have already learned. So that will help you to understand the material nature and how to go beyond that into the spiritual nature. The soul is basically spirit. So you can imagine Bhagavad Gita like a treasure box. The first 6 chapters are the lid, and we have just opened it. The last 6 chapters are the base, which is protecting the contents, and the middle 6 chapters are the treasure itself. So we are entering into the treasure house by the mercy of Krishna and Srila Prabhupada, who is the founder Acharya of ISKCON. Let us, in our mind, pass on our gratitude to them and then proceed with the learning. So first of all, let us understand the difference between a descending process of learning and ascending process of learning. Ascending process is what we all have learned through school and college and through higher studies, and this is what we always do. We just learn by trial and error. The scientists, the so-called scientists, they are advancing the frontiers of knowledge by constantly researching, and then they are discovering. Discovering means it already exists, but it is not known to man. So they are slowly discovering something. But in the process of discovering, oftentimes they understand that we were mistaken before. Now our knowledge just widened. But after some time they say, no, even that was a mistake. This trial and error process of learning is called secular learning. When will you know that you have learned everything? You will never know, because always somebody will come and say, you were wrong before. Like we have a deterministic model, then we have a relativistic model, then we have a quantum model. See, in terms of studying reality, Newton gave with the deterministic model, Einstein came with a relativistic model. Now then we have quantum. So things are constantly changing. Our knowledge base of the way we approach knowledge itself is changing. So this is the limitation of secular science, where you reject religion. You don't want religion to play a part in your learning. And this is the price we are paying, that we are constantly experimenting, making costly trials and error. In the process, crores of people have come and gone. For example, cholesterol, whether it is good for the body or not good for the body, we are all confused. And what is the definition of a diabetic threshold? We are all confused. So sometimes they say coconut is good, sometimes they say coconut is bad. Unlimited number of trials and errors are going on with our health and with our knowledge and with our longevity in this world. It is all the limitations of science. The mind and senses are also limited. And because man's science is based on what the mind and senses tell him, so the science we have is limited. It is not perfect. It is full of faults. So how to get the true knowledge? How to get the perfect knowledge? Then you have to approach the perfect source. Perfect source means he will never fail. He knows everything. Such a source is God. So unless you approach God, how do you approach God? Through his revelations. The scriptures are revealed by God, and the scriptures are taught to you in a parampara system. Krishna taught the truth to Brahma, and from Brahma it came to Narada, to Vyasa. Like that the parampara is continuing. And through the parampara we should connect to the Guru, and from him we should learn the truth. So this is the process of descending knowledge. So descending knowledge is called Avarohan process, and it is considered perfect. It is also called Shabda. Descending knowledge is called Shabda, means the vibrations that are coming down from the spiritual world into the material world, these vibrations are perfect. These sound vibrations are perfect. So now we are going to at last learn the truth. Even though many of us, like I came to know at the age of 45, I don't know, in front of me, many of you sitting may be teenagers, and many of you may be past 60 years also. But by our misfortune, we have a secular system of government, which is religion should never become part of anything, whether it is part of learning, or it's a part of working, or it's part of government, or the executive or judiciary. Nowhere religion is allowed. So we have to live with the limitations of the ascending process of acquiring knowledge. So here is the unification theory. I just put it because some of you who have a science background may be interested to hear this, because the scientists are constantly looking for a unification. They are looking for many things. They were looking for God particle, for instance, wasting $20 billion of taxpayers' money. So here is another thing they are looking for, the one theory that will harmonize all the theories of the world, what the scientists are having. They talk about many forces are operating in this universe. Are these forces coming from different places? No, it has to come from one common source. So they are looking for that one source that will unify all the forces of nature. And what is the secret of this? We have to know Krishna. That is the way you will know the unification theory. How to know Krishna? By loving Krishna only you will know him. There is no other way. Krishna is willing to reveal himself to his devotees, his loving devotees, not to others. So, if you want to know the ultimate truth, the perfect science, then you have to love Krishna. And then by loving Krishna, you will know Krishna, and then you will know everything. In the Rig Veda, there is an aphorism that says, "What is it knowing which I will know everything?" So here is the answer. By knowing Krishna, you will know everything. Nothing will be left for you to know. So Krishna says in the 7th chapter, I am quoting some Sanskrit words so that you will become familiar with them. They are so beautiful. They have such powerful meanings. Krishna says, Tat Shrunu, hear from me. So the hearing process is very special in Shabda. We are talking about, the descending knowledge. You get it by hearing. Hearing from the proper sources, which is the scripture and from parampara. You have to hear the scripture from parampara, then you get the actual truth, then you come to know about Krishna, and as you know Krishna, your love for him grows. And Krishna says in the same shloka, asamshayam, means without any doubt, very clearly you will understand me. Samagram means completely. There will be nothing left for you to know. So these are possible. Asamshayam, samagram, complete knowledge of Krishna. Only when Krishna gives you, you can learn. Otherwise, there is no way of learning. Here is a shloka. Let us read it together. 3rd shloka in 7th chapter. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatamapi siddhanam kaschin mam veti tattvataha. Again. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatamapi siddhanam kaschin mam veti tattvataha. Translation. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So, if you analyze this shloka, you will understand. Out of thousands of people, only one is even endeavoring for perfection. May. Out of thousands, one may endeavor. But out of thousands of such people who are endeavoring, one may achieve perfection. And even that one person will hardly know Krishna in truth. Now you understand how great devotee is. Because to a devotee, Krishna wants to reveal. This shloka, what we just read, 7.1, where Krishna is telling Arjuna, I will tell you everything about me. Everything. And without any doubt, you will know about me. This is available only to a devotee, not to anyone else. Krishna Vijnanam. What we are going to know? We are going to completely know the manifest nature and the unmanifest nature. Both we will know. And we will also know the source of both. What is the material nature around us and what are the forces which are driving the material nature and from where those sources are themselves coming. That is what Krishna is going to teach us. And we are going to learn something higher than Brahman. We have already heard Brahman means two things. One is the soul. Our soul is Brahman. And also the underlying essence of entire material creation is called Brahman. The underlying essence, the unchanging, undifferentiated foundation of entire creation is called Brahman. So once you know these things, there is nothing left to know. Krishna uses the word asheshataha. Sesha means something is left. Asheshataha means there is nothing left for you to know. And so the knowledge what you are going to get now is beyond what a Jnani and Ashtanga Yogi can get. A Jnani and Ashtanga Yogi, they are trying through different processes, Jnana Marga and Ashtanga Yoga Marga. And one day they will reach a process of transcendental knowledge. At that point, if they take up bhakti, then they will know Krishna. So somewhere they have to take up bhakti. What the devotee is taking up right away, these yogis will take at a much later date in their life. So the seeker of wisdom is very rare among human beings. A rare jnani hardly knows Krishna in truth. But still, Krishna makes devotees know at his sweet will. Not that devotees are entitled to know, but Krishna is happy to reveal himself to his devotees, just like he is revealing now to Arjuna. Krishna and his variegated energies. We shall be knowing about Krishna and what are his energies. So the factual Purusha you see in the picture is Mahavishnu. The scriptures tell us that from every skin pore of his body, the hair follicles, from that one universe is coming out as he breathes out. So he's breathing out unlimited universes from his body, not one universe. There are unlimited universes. They are coming from his body. So that is the material nature. That's called Binna Prakriti. See, it is coming out of his body means it is separating from him. So we call it as Binna Prakriti, a separated nature of Krishna. It is also called the inferior energy of Krishna. And then we have the souls, Jiva, what we are. No, inside me there is a Jiva. I discussed earlier, our body is like a tree only. There is a bird sitting on it. That is the Jivatma, which is part and parcel of Krishna. So that is the superior energy. You will be surprised to know the entire material energy, material nature is inferior and the soul is superior. But the Jiva is equal in quality with Krishna. Qualitatively, like if you take a drop of the ocean and take it to a lab and study, it will have the same qualities as the whole ocean. Similarly, our Jiva has qualities similar to Krishna. So our consciousness, our thinking, willing, feeling, these are all the qualities of Krishna. And our constant desire for happiness, that is also part of Krishna. So qualitatively we are like Krishna, but quantitatively no comparison at all. We are always very, very tiny and Krishna is unlimited. So we can never become God, but that is, we should become happy about it. Because we can always have a wonderful relationship with Krishna. We don't want to merge with Krishna. We want to serve Krishna in love. So that is always possible. That's why bhakti is eternal. Here we see more details about the Binna Prakriti. We talked about the inferior energy of Krishna. Here are some details about that. There is a gross matter which is called earth, water, fire, air, and ether means space. All these five things are the gross elements of material nature. So the world around us is made of these five visible things. Space is also visible. You can say, how can I see space or ether? But unless the space is there, you cannot put the objects there. I am sitting here means I am sitting in space. If space is not there, where will I sit? Make space, we say sometimes no. So everything around us exists because the space is there. So space is also experienced. So these five are the gross elements. Then there are three subtle elements. They are called mind, intelligence, and false ego. False ego means the consciousness is there, that is real, but consciousness that I am the body, that is not real. So it's false. I say, no, I am this body. That's false. I think I am this body. That's false. So that is called false ego. That is not me actually. The false ego is not me. That is also matter, prakriti. That is not a living thing. The consciousness that I am this body is not real. It is false. So it's part of material nature only. Whatever is listed here is part of the inferior material nature, the divided nature, the Binna Prakriti. Binna means separated from the Supreme Lord. So these are the 8 elements of which our body is also constituted. Our body, the visible body, is made of the 5 elements, and the invisible body, we have a subtle body inside, that is made of mind, intelligence, and false ego. The soul is inside all these things. So the soul is having 2 dresses, like an outer garment and an inner garment. My outer garment is made of these gross elements. My inner garment is made of the subtle elements. When somebody dies, the inner garment he takes along with him, but you cannot see. The soul travels on the inner garments. The subtle body, the soul takes and enters into another body. That is how the soul remembers everything that happened in the previous lifetimes. But more than that, inside the subtle body, not only the soul is going, the super soul is also going. Bhagavan is going, and he remembers everything on behalf of the soul. And so this is what Sankhya Yoga. You remember in the 2nd chapter, we talked something about Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya Yoga is basically analyzing the material elements like this. There are 5 gross elements, we already discussed. There are 3 subtle elements, we already discussed. There are material senses, 5 knowledge gathering senses, 5 working senses. We all have. So totally there are 10 material senses. So 5 of knowledge gathering, 5 of working. And there are 5 sense objects. Like when you hear, that means there is some sound. When you see, that means there is some object is there, visible object is there. When you smell something, there is an object that is emanating that smell. Like that, sense objects. So all these, if you put together, you get 23. 5 plus 3 plus 10 plus 5 sense objects, 23. And then you have to add something called Mahat Tattva, which is the whole from which all these elements have come. What Krishna first created is the Mahat Tattva. That Mahat Tattva has differentiated into all these things. So ultimately there are 24. These are all dead things. These are all inferior and they are all dead. So what is superior? My soul is superior. How did the superior soul come into this inferior matter? Because of envy of Krishna. Because I wanted to enjoy myself separately from Krishna, Krishna created all these facilities. Krishna knows that I will not be happy here. So it has become a jail for me. Krishna has created this place so that one day I will realize that I can never be happy here and I will want to go back to him. For that purpose, he has kept Durga Devi in charge of this material world. Durga Devi is a completely surrendered servant of Krishna. She is the material energy of Krishna. She is serving him by giving problems to us so that one day we will realize. How does she give problems? She is simply giving us the reactions of all our actions. Whatever action I do, she is giving me the reaction. At the bottom, I have mentioned something called Vrishchika Tandula Nyaya. Nyaya in Sanskrit means logic. Vrishchika means scorpion. Tandula means paddy or rice. See, some farmer kept a bag of paddy in his house. After several months, he opened the paddy. And then, surprise of surprise, tiny scorpions were crawling out of the paddy. Then the farmer ran into the village and he shouted, "Now I have found out how scorpions come." How they come? When you keep paddy stored for some time, they transform into scorpion. He says, "I have made a discovery." Just like our scientists. What do our scientists say? There is matter, the matter itself has become life. Some of you who are scientifically minded or you have learned might recollect. Our science teaches that life is simply a byproduct of chemical interactions. The material world is made of chemicals, and as the chemicals interact, sometimes as a byproduct, life comes. So they want you to believe this. They are like the farmer, that the paddy has become Vrishchika, scorpion. But actually, what happened? Sometime in the past, a scorpion had come, it had laid the eggs in the paddy, and they have hatched, and the young ones are coming out. But foolish farmer thinks the paddy has become the scorpion. Same way in this material world, you have analyzed all the 24 elements. There is no life in any of these things. So how did the life come? Krishna explains. Let us see this shloka. It's a beautiful shloka. Krishna says, 7th shloka, Matta parataram nanyat kinchid nanjaya mayi sarvam idam protam sutre manigana iva. There's a small typing mistake. I will correct it. Matta parataram nanyat kinchid nanjaya mayi sarvam idam protam sutre manigana iva. O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. How beautiful. Krishna is saying, once you know me, there is nothing more to know. I am the highest truth. Our scientists are basically discovering truths. All of you will agree. They are trying to discover one truth after the other. Earlier, for example, man could never fly. But when the scientists discovered a higher truth, they could put aeroplanes into the sky. And when they discovered more truths, they could even send rockets into outer space and control them. So basically, they are learning higher and higher truths, but these are all inferior truths because they relate to material world. But Krishna says, I am the highest truth, which is a transcendental truth. And whatever you observe around me, they are all like pearls in a necklace. You don't see the thread. That thread is me. This is what Krishna wants us to understand. So Krishna says, a living being, you remember that scorpion story, a living being is a combination of matter and spirit. The 24 elements we discussed, they are the matter, and there is spirit added there. In the Sankhya Yoga, the spirit is not there. So through Sankhya Yoga, you come to know my life is not part of material elements at all. My life has come from some other source. What source? That is the superior energy of Krishna. The matter is also energy of Krishna, but inferior. But here we are talking about the superior energy of Krishna, which is the spirit. And we are all tiny particles of Krishna. So we are all spirit. Krishna is also spirit, but Krishna is unlimited spirit. We are tiny particles of that spirit. So the spirit is the invisible background of material phenomena. Now you understand what is working behind. The matter itself is dead. The material world is dead. But because the souls have come inside, there is activity, apparent activity in the material world. But material world is always dead by the presence of soul, which have been injected by Krishna. Krishna has injected those souls which are envious of him, which have turned away from him. They are all in this material world. So Krishna is the ultimate controller. He creates this material world, maintains and destroys it. And why he does it? So that the souls will have an opportunity to try and enjoy independently. One day they will come to realize that I want to surrender to Krishna. This is what Krishna is waiting for. Otherwise, all creation is like a pearl necklace. The invisible thread is Krishna. So he is the cause and effect of everything. Here are a few statements Krishna makes about how he is in everything. Not only Krishna is the cause of everything, but he is also the essence of everything. So when we say Krishna's energy is the matter, so earth, water, fire, earth, air and space, they are all Krishna only. Mind, intelligence, false ego, they are all Krishna only. That is the inferior part. The superior part, souls, they have also come from him. So Krishna is the cause and Krishna is the essence. So Krishna tells, for example, I am the taste of water. He is water itself, but he is reminding you, The taste you have of water, when you are thirsty, you drink water, how nice you feel. That taste, Krishna says, that is me. So, not only Krishna is giving us water to drink, but he is also that water only. And the taste of that water also Krishna only. So now you see how intimately Krishna is connected in our life. So we don't see him at all. Because we don't have devotional eyes to see, we don't see. Krishna is everywhere. He is embracing us 24 hours. Our body is Krishna, the dress we are wearing on our body is Krishna, the mind which we think are Krishna. That way, Krishna is completely embracing us from all around, but we refuse to see Krishna out of envy. So there are other statements Krishna makes. The light of the sun. Sun is important because it gives light. That light is Krishna. Mantra Om is Krishna. Om represents Krishna. Most people don't know. They say just Om is a sound vibration, holy sound. No, Om is Krishna. The sound that emanates in ether, that is Krishna. I am the ability in man. I am the fragrance of the earth. Krishna says, the earth has got its own fragrance from which we are making all other fragrances. That is Krishna only. So Krishna continues. He is the heat in fire. He is the life of all living things. Our soul is Krishna. Our soul is alive because of Krishna. He is the penance of ascetics. He is the original seed of all existence. I spoke about out of the 24 elements, ultimately Pradhana, that is Krishna only. Collection of all the material elements. And he is the intelligence of the intelligent. I sometimes claim I am so very intelligent. Out of my intelligence, I have accomplished something. So I say it is my copyright. It is my trademark. Everybody should pay me loyalty. And I go on becoming richer and richer. One day I leave everything and go. That intelligence was given by Krishna only. One day I may also get Alzheimer's and all my intelligence may leave. But it may be too late for me to realize that Krishna gave me everything. So he is the prowess of the powerful. He is the strength of the strong. So whatever I am proud of, that is Krishna's mercy only. Sex life according to religious principles. Please understand, the whole world today is obsessed with sex. That is a sign of advancing Kali Yuga. The correct recommendation is forget about sex. You have to remember God and you have to forget about sex. If I forget about sex, then how life will go on? Yes. So Krishna says, I am sex life according to religious principles. What is that? You should marry. And you should have sex only within married life. And that too, only to produce children. Sex is not for entertainment at all, even within marriage. Sex is meant for procreation, to bring children. And why do you bring out children? That is also explained. The children you bring out means you are only giving a body. The soul is given by Krishna. The soul is given by Krishna. So the soul is given to you as a trustee. You are supposed to develop that soul into a devotee of Krishna and send him back to Krishna. The parents have a duty to make their children nice devotees of Krishna. For that, the parents should first become devotees. So you understand, sex life is approved by Krishna for householders only, for grahasthas only. And that too, they should use sex according to religious principles. Not that I will use it as an entertainment. I hope it is clear. And he is the energy from which the sattva, raja, tamo guna come. The whole material world is under the control of three gunas. We will read it in due course of time in greater detail. We are all controlled by these three gunas. They keep changing from time to time, but they all emanate from Krishna. All of us are subjected to the control of these three gunas, but Krishna is the source of these gunas. He is not controlled. Krishna is everything, but he is independent of everything. The whole world, the creation comes out of him, but Krishna is not dependent on them. That means karma doesn't bind him. Whatever I do, I create karma. But Krishna is creating unlimited universes, but he is not bound by karma because he is completely detached from the material universe. So there is no karma for him. This is an important point for us to remember. So Krishna says, anyone who knows me as this, that everything depends on me, but I am independent of everything. I am doing activities all the time, but none of the activities bind me. If you know me like this, you will also become like me, and you will return to the spiritual world. You will not come to the material world again. This is the promise to the souls Krishna is giving. You know me well, then you don't have to come back to this material world. He is beyond the three modes of nature. Let us read this another beautiful shloka, 14th shloka. दैविहि गुणमयी मम माया दुरत्यया मामेव ये प्रपद्यन्ते मायामेतां तरन्ति ते. Again, दैविहि गुणमयी मम माया दुरत्यया मामेव ये प्रपद्यन्ते मायामेतां तरन्ति ते. Translation: This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered to me can easily cross beyond it. So Krishna is telling about his devotees who have surrendered to him can easily cross the Maya. So this shloka is talking about Daivihi Esha, the divine energy, Gunamayi. It is the three qualities which are inherent in nature. They are Mama Maya, they are my energy, and Duratyaya, you cannot overcome them. But Mam means me, Eva, only. That means only by surrendering to Krishna. Prapadyante, surrendering. So by surrendering only to Krishna, Maya metam tarantite, they only can cross this Maya. So this Maya is keeping us bound in this material world. It is the Maya, the force of the three. You see in the picture, the three ladies, they are the three forces that are coming out of Krishna. They are subordinate to Krishna. They don't bind him, but they bind all the souls in this material world. Sattva, Raja, Tamoguna. Tamoguna means complete ignorance. Such a person is very lazy and he always thinks right as wrong and wrong as right. He will think corruption is good as long as I can get money. Sex life is good as long as I am getting some pleasure out of it. And he will try to enjoy his happiness by the least effort. Whatever is easily available, he will take it. He will steal, he will cheat, he will plunder, he will rape, he will murder. All wrong things he will do. That is Tamoguna. A little above that is Rajoguna. In Rajoguna, a person wants enjoyment, but for that purpose he is willing to work hard. He is willing to work hard for achieving that enjoyment. So he works and then enjoys. Sometimes he works and gets his goal, he becomes happy. Sometimes he works, he doesn't achieve his goal because of karmic reaction, he becomes unhappy. So a person in Rajoguna, like a pendulum, swinging between temporary happiness and misery. A person in Sattva-guna cultivates qualities, nice qualities like humility, tolerance, non-violence, truthfulness, cleanliness. He develops these qualities and becomes happy in those qualities. His life is the happiest in this material world. But he is also bound by this material world because it goes on taking repeated rebirth. What is liberation? Liberation means I should not take rebirth. So, but people in Tamoguna, Rajoguna, Sattvaguna, everybody takes rebirth. But person in Tamoguna, most miserable. Person in Sattvaguna, least miserable. But they are all miserable because they undergo birth, old age, disease and death. So these three forces are creating this bondage in this material world. Difficult to overcome. But the servants of Krishna, as we just now saw in the shloka, they overcome very easily. So Krishna talks about 4 types of people who will not surrender to him. Obviously, all of you who are participating in this class for the last 7 sessions, you are not any of these 4 people. So we will try to see who these are. One is materialistic people. They want to work hard and earn money and enjoy. So what they say, work hard between Monday and Friday and party harder on Saturday and Sunday. Again, Monday to Friday, work hard and then party. Working, partying. That is the nature of materialistic people. They think I live only once and I want to enjoy. So, in the name of enjoying, they are working like donkeys because they are after money. power, position, name, fame. They are always running the rat race. Such people have no time to look up and see God. The rat is always having its nose on the ground only, sniffing, sniffing, sniffing. So these materialistic people are also like that only. Their nose is always on the ground. Their eyes can never see up. Secondly, socially, politically developed people. They become social leaders, political leaders, but they are averse to religious principles. I don't have to name them. You see all around you. All our leaders in the political life or in the business life or in the executive, judiciary, wherever you see, they are all against religious principles. They will never quote religion for any of their decisions. They, even though they are very advanced in their thinking, but they are unable to think beyond material enjoyment because they are so egoistic. They cannot acknowledge a power higher than them. Whether they are social leaders or political leaders, they want all the credit to themselves. I am a self-made man. I am intelligent. I am smart. I am powerful. Such is the nature of the thinking these people have. So they will never surrender to Krishna. Then you have highly educated scholars, philosophers, scientists, but they are all under illusion and they go on speculating. By speculating, you will not surrender to Krishna unless you accept the scriptures in the parampara. For that, you need some humility. Then only you will come to know Krishna. So these people, they go on researching by using their limited material mind and material senses, and they discover the laws of nature, etc. And they write big books, and they say, I am a scholar of English or literature or science or history or geography, like that. They are very proud of their learning, but they don't know there is God beyond everything else. So there is a nice story to illustrate this. I will try to tell it in a few words. Three highly educated people were walking through the forest. But there was a fourth man who was guiding them. He was illiterate. So they came across a heap of bones in the forest. The one highly educated man said, I can assemble these bones into the original structure. Whichever animal it was, I will organize it. So he similarly, in no time, he arranged the bones into the skeleton of a lion. The second person said, I can give flesh, bones, blood circulation, everything I can do. And he proceeded to do that. The third man said, I know how to give it life. All these three intelligent people. The fourth foolish man, he said, unintelligent, no, not educated. He said, please sir, don't do it. They said, what you fool, what do you understand? We are so intelligent, we control everything. Now we will definitely do it. Then the man said, give me 2 minutes time. He went and climbed the nearest tree. And then they gave life to the lion, and you can imagine what happened. That is the kind of inferior knowledge that these highly educated people have, because their knowledge lacks the spiritual component. Their knowledge is completely material. So they destroy themselves and they destroy others, unfortunately. Unless one surrenders to Krishna, he cannot do good to the world. And straight away, atheists. Atheists are those people who simply think everything has come by itself, Big Bang, like that. Such people, they don't surrender to Krishna. But there are 4 types of people who surrender to Krishna. Who are they? This is very interesting. One is people who are in distress, artha, people who are suffering. One example we have given here is Gajendra. I hope you know the story of Gajendra in Bhagavatam. The elephant was entering into the water, but when huge crocodile caught him, and the battle between the crocodile and Gajendra went on for 100 years. But ultimately, Gajendra surrendered to the Supreme Lord and said, please save me. So in distress, he turned to God. And because of that surrender, God came and saved him. So it's called Varadaraj. In Kanchipuram, we have this Gajendra Varada. He saved Gajendra. Then we have Dhruva, who was a 5-year-old child, but because he was not treated properly by his stepmother, he went into the forest to earn a huge empire bigger than his grandfather, that is Brahma. He wanted to have an empire bigger than Brahma. So he performed tapasya, and the Lord appeared to him and he fulfilled his desire. That is Dhruva. So he was Artharthi, he wanted wealth. So he also surrendered to Krishna. Third is inquisitive people. I want to know what is the absolute truth, what is reality. Such people are like Saunaka Rishi. They question, please let me know about the Supreme Lord. Such people also surrender. And the fourth type of people are Nishkama devotees. They just have knowledge of the undifferentiated Brahman. And they, when they have a good fortune of contacting with God, they surrender to Him. So they are called Jnana Mishra or Yoga Mishra. The Mishra means mixed. So they have some Jnana mixed. Jnana mixed means you understand that I am not the body, I am a spirit soul and I am eternal. That's called Jnana. That Jnana is mixed in their devotion. Or Yoga Mishra. Yoga Mishra, we have already discussed Ashtanga Yoga, by which they get siddhis. So they are not pure devotees. So these are the four types of people who surrender to Krishna. Of course, then there are the perfected people like the Kumaras and Sukadeva Goswami, who are also, by virtue of their knowledge, they are surrendered to Krishna also. But Krishna is talking about the first four types of people. And Krishna glorifies all of them, saying they are all magnanimous because they come to me for their needs. So Krishna is not criticizing that they are coming to me for various purposes. So they are coming to me like a merchant. But Krishna is not unhappy. For whatever reason, if we turn to Krishna, Krishna becomes happy. So Krishna expresses his happiness, saying all these four types of people are magnanimous people because they are approaching me. But he says the wise one, free, the fifth category, what you are seeing here, the wise one who is free from all material desires, he is the best and he is dearest to me. Krishna declares that he is dearest to me. So from whatever position we are, if we continue to do bhakti, we will reach that stage. A devotee may be in any of these first four stages, but Krishna calls all of them magnanimous. That means Krishna wants to take all of us back to him. Even though we may be coming in distress or desiring wealth or out of curiosity, Krishna doesn't mind. As long as you only approach Krishna for all your needs, you don't go to the Devatas, you only go to Krishna. Then he gives his complete mercy to you. So here is another shloka, 719. Here is again, Krishna explains how rare it is to find a surrendered devotee. 19th shloka. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. Again. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge, that means Jnani, surrenders to me. So Jnani takes many births before surrendering. Knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is, such a great soul is very rare. So Krishna says, a Mahatma means my devotee. We will see explanation here. Krishna says, a pure devotee is so rare, and he calls him Mahatma. So Mahatma means not anyone who displays some nice qualities. Just because somebody is very truthful or non-violent or he is trying to do good to the society, he doesn't become Mahatma in Krishna's estimation. Krishna says a pure devotee surrendered to Krishna is a Mahatma. So in the shloka we just saw, Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha, who Vasudeva Sarvam, a devotee who understands everything is emanating from Vasudeva and everything is Vasudeva. Only such a person is a Mahatma. So to find such a Mahatma is so rare, Krishna says. A Jnani or a transcendentally intelligent person will take thousands of births. This is Krishna's words. Bahunam janmanam ante. After many, many births, he will become a Mahatma. That means he will become a devotee. A Jnani is not a Mahatma. A Jnani, when he becomes a devotee of Krishna, then he becomes a Mahatma. Before that, he will take many, many births. This is what Krishna says. So here you see in the picture, somebody embracing Krishna. That is a soul which has been wandering in this material universe for unlimited time, but finally has surrendered, and Krishna has given him a form like himself. That is a spiritual form. In that spiritual form, Krishna is embracing that soul. All of us have a spiritual form like that. Krishna is keeping ready for us. That there is no difference between that form and the soul. It is the same. That form we will get when we return to Krishna. So that is the glorious future that all of us share. One day we shall all be back with Krishna like that. It only depends how fast I want to reach that place. So Krishna says, those who are not very intelligent, they worship the Devatas for temporary benefits. We have already explained it earlier. Devatas can give only temporary benefits because they are the administrative heads of this material universe. They exist within this material universe, which comes and goes. I showed you from Mahavishnu's body, universes come when he breathes out. Then again, when he breathes in, all of them go back inside. So the material nature has such a temporary existence of one breath of Brahma. Within that one breath of Brahma, one breath of Mahavishnu, so many Brahmas come and go, so many universes come and go, so many Devatas come and go. So they are all having temporary existence. Basically, all Devatas are not people, they are positions. They are occupied by different souls based on qualification. Krishna appoints them. And they exist in that position as long as Krishna wants. Then some other soul will take that position. So the gods are not the same forever. The soul changes like a Indra. Somebody will be Indra for some time. Then somebody else will become Indra. This Indra will go and he will take birth some other place. So Indra is a position. The soul occupying that position will change. But Krishna is not like that. Krishna is always Krishna. But Indra, Chandra, Varuna, Vayu, Agni, Dik Balagas, Navagrahas, all are positions only. Somebody will take that position temporarily and then give up that position. So they are there temporarily. If I worship them, they can give only temporary benefit. They are not eternal, so they cannot give me eternal benefits. The soul is eternal. The soul in the demigod, Devata, is eternal. But he will leave that position. After that, he cannot take care of me, right? Somebody else will come to that position. So, those who worship Devatas are less intelligent people. But they still worship him because out of their own nature. You know, they are sometimes in Tamo Guna, Rajo Guna, Sattva Guna. Accordingly, they worship Devatas. But Krishna still strengthens their faith. Krishna doesn't trouble them. Krishna says, all right, you worship, sitting as Paramatma inside, he is strengthening that faith. And also, when they pray to that Devata, Krishna permits that Devata to give the benefit. Without Krishna's permission, they cannot give you the benefit. But Krishna says, all right, you give it to him. Because Krishna is sitting as Paramatma in my heart, Krishna is sitting as Paramatma in the heart of the Devata also. So he brings the connection. So when I worship the Devata, the benefit is given by Krishna only, but I don't realize that. Once I realize, then I will no longer go to the Devatas. Oh, if Krishna only is giving me all the benefits, then let me go to Krishna directly. So we are not meaning disrespect to the Devatas. They deserve our respect forever. But we should understand, we should not go to them for receiving our needs. We should only go to Krishna. We should give our respect to them and pray to them to connect us with Krishna. Nothing more than that we should demand from them. So worshipping Devata gives temporary result. Our material desires cannot go away. The Devatas can fulfill our desires, but they cannot destroy our desires. They cannot destroy our karma, which means we will continue to take rebirth only. So at best we can attain the planet of the Devatas when we die. When we do nice devotion to them, we can go to the planet of Varuna, Vayu, Agni, Indra and Chandra and live there for a long time. But that planet itself will one day end, and my stay there also will end. Nothing is permanent here. Long time, that's all, not permanent. But Krishna's devotees go back to Krishna, who is beyond the material world, which is eternal. Vaikuntha, Goloka, these are all eternal places in the spiritual sky, not in this material sky. They are in the spiritual sky. and there I go eternally have the association of Krishna. So Krishna can be known only by his will, others will be misled. Again, I want to connect you to the first slide what we saw today. Krishna will make himself known to his devotee only, that too by his own sweet will. If Krishna wants you to know him, you will know him. Actually, it's a miracle how we know him. We already discussed the soul is a tiny particle of Krishna. How can the soul know Krishna fully? But if Krishna wants to put the 7 oceans inside a mustard seed, he can. You don't believe? You take the case of a banyan tree. How tiny is the seed? But he could put the whole banyan tree inside. Not only that, from that seed a banyan tree grows and it produces millions of fruits, and each fruit contains thousands of seeds, and each seed contains a banyan tree. So what is impossible for Krishna? But Krishna will allow only his devotees to know him, others cannot. So impersonalists are people who refuse to accept that God has a form. They insist that God has no form. So they lack higher intelligence to know Krishna. And they will not know Krishna. Krishna has a form, but they will not accept that. They will say, no, Krishna also will one day merge in Brahman. Brahman is higher. Brahman is the formless effulgence, energy. That is the highest according to impersonalists. They want to merge there. They say Krishna has also merged in that effulgence. Krishna came out of that effulgence and he merged in. They will say like that. So they will never know Krishna. They consider personality as inferior to impersonality. They say when God takes a form and comes, that form is like us only. So they think the formless God is always superior. Such people will not know Krishna. Similarly, Mayavadi people think that Krishna was only a human being like us. With extraordinary powers, the impersonal God was talking through Krishna, but Krishna's body was like yours and mine. Such people also will not know Krishna. They don't know there is no difference between Krishna's body and soul. Krishna is Satchitananda Vigraha. Brahma says in Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So he is Satchitananda Vigraha. His body is made of Satchitananda. Our soul is Satchitananda. You may be surprised to know. Our soul is Satchitananda. Our body is not Satchitananda. But Krishna is like butter. Inside out, he is the same thing. He is Satchitananda. How we can know him? Only by doing devotional service. For non-devotees, he is covered by his own energy. Krishna's internal energy, which is called Yogamaya. Yogamaya. She covers him completely so that ordinary people will see him as an ordinary man. By Krishna's plan, by Krishna's design, they will not know him. So here is another beautiful shloka. Let us read this. Naham prakasa sarvasya yoga maya samavritaha mudhoyam nabi janati loko mam ajamavyayam. Again. Naham prakasa sarvasya yoga maya samavritaha mudhoyam nabi janati loko mam ajamavyayam. Translation. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent, which means they don't understand there is God beyond this material creation and that God is a person. For such people, Krishna is not manifest. For them, I am covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. Ajam means unborn. I am not born. Avyayam means I don't end. Avyayam, no end, no beginning. So Krishna, that personality called Satchitananda Vigraha, Shyamasundara Krishna, he is unborn and infallible. But because he is covered, Yogamaya Samavritaha. Avrita means covering. So by the Yogamaya, internal energy of Krishna, he is covered so that everybody cannot see. Na aham prakasha sarvasya. Everybody cannot see me. I am not visible to everyone. That means I am visible to some. That means only devotees see me. Devotees can see him always. but other people cannot see him. So this is an important sloka. So Krishna's will deludes means cheats non-devotees. How does he cheat non-devotees? By his yoga maya. That they will always suspect. Even if you see Krishna Leela, in the end Krishna died as far as these people are concerned. In Prabhasa Kshetra, there was a hunter who shot an arrow into his feet and Krishna died. So for all of them, he satisfied them. See, I am also dead. So you are all right. I am a human being. So they forgot all the leelas that Krishna performed. He even deluded Brahmaji and Indra, and he lifted a whole hill. He killed so many Rakshasas, but still they say, no, Krishna died. He's a human being. So that is how he deludes non-devotees. Krishna is one who knows all the past, present and future. No one else can know him, Krishna says. I know past, present, future. That means he knows the story of all of us, but none of us know him. Under Maya, non-devotees think Krishna's body is only material. And because they are filled with selfish desires and they want to enjoy, they envy Krishna. Because Krishna enjoys everything. Whatever Krishna wants, immediately it happens. Krishna doesn't have to make an effort. Even when he was born, few days old, he killed Putana, he killed Trinavarta, he killed Bakasura, he killed Agasura, he killed Kamsa. Even as a child, he did all these things. He did not do tapasya to become great. Little baby Krishna could do all these things. So they are jealous, they are envious. Such souls will never accept Krishna. They will say, Krishna is maybe a historical person, but he is dead. They will not accept Krishna as God. Because of selfish desires, they are envious of Krishna. And because of that envy, they are always subjected to duality. What is duality? Pleasure, pain, good, bad, knowledge, ignorance. They will see, everything duality they will see. And because of duality, they will be completely covered over by Mahamaya, material nature. And they cannot realize their soul. They will always think, I am the body. And Krishna is also a body only. So Krishna but manifests in devotee association. Those who are pious have conquered the sinful reactions in past lives. Now, I can tell all of you who are sitting here and taking this session, all of you have conquered your sinful reactions in your past lives. And you are pious people. That's how you are able to sit here. This is not my word. These are the words of Krishna. If someone has to come to Krishna Bhakti, that means they have already accomplished many things in their past lives. And they perform Bhakti. Devotional service means Bhakti with determination. And they get into the association of devotees. Then they accelerate their growth very fast. By coming in the association of devotees, their elevation back home, back to Godhead becomes hastened. It becomes much quicker. Swiftly, they will go back to Krishna. So intelligent persons desiring liberation from old age and death, they take refuge in Bhakti. Once intelligent people realize, one day I will become old, one day I will die. I am not interested in the petty pleasures of this world, which will all end when I become old and die. And they take shelter of God, saying, God never becomes old, never dies. I will take his shelter so that he will save me. Some of you might have heard the story of Markandeya Rishi. Markandeya Rishi was cursed to die at the age of 16. So he went to the Siva Kshetra and hugged the Shivalinga for his protection. So Lord Shiva manifested from the Linga and kicked Yama, and Yama died. And he gave a blessing to Markandeya that you will be only 16 years, you will never grow beyond 16 years. And he is one of the oldest personalities still existing in this universe. And he is still young, 16 years old. So such people, by mercy of Krishna, they will come to know him. First they take shelter of Brahman, and then by performing bhakti, they come to know Krishna. So only intelligent people who want liberation from old age, death and rebirth, they take refuge in bhakti. And such people, by the mercy of Krishna, they will come to know. So, but in any case, let us understand, By our own effort, we will never get Krishna. But without our effort also, we will not get Krishna. When our efforts attract the mercy of Krishna, then we are successful. Just like in the case of Damodar Leela, where Yashoda was trying to tie up Krishna because he was very mischievous. But all the ropes she brought, still it was 2 fingers short. The ropes could not bind him. The 2 fingers short is, one finger is her own endeavor. Second finger is Krishna's mercy. When she never gave up her effort, the endeavor was there. And Krishna became merciful and allowed her to bind him. So Krishna allows himself to be bound by his devotees when he sees they are really making the endeavor to love him, to know him. Then Krishna allows himself to be bound by the love of his devotees. So those who remember Krishna at death, how they do that? First, they understand the entire material manifestation is Krishna only. Everything around me is Krishna. Then the controllers of creation, they are the devatas. They are also Krishna. First of all, nature is Krishna, like the rain, the water, the fire, the air, everything is Krishna. The devatas who control the Vayu Bhagavan, Varuna Bhagavan, Agni Bhagavan, Indra Bhagavan, they all are Krishna only. And the process by which the entire creation works is by a process of yajna, sacrifice. That process also is Krishna. If they know him like that, they will never forget him. That means the matter around you, the invisible forces that are controlling the matter around you, and the process that keeps the cycle going, they are all Krishna. If you see that, you will never forget Krishna. That means at the time of death also, you will remember Krishna and you will go back to him. Now we will read the Panchatattva mantra, and we have come to the end of today's session. I hope you are all chanting already. This Panchatattva mantra you should chant before you chant the Maha Mantra. Let us chant it together. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. This attracts the mercy of Krishna. After chanting this, you should chant the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Please continue to chant. You have come to a mission which can help you to perfect your life. You will not have to take another birth into this material world, which is full of misery and suffering and transient, temporary. By sincerely, with sincere endeavor, if you follow what we are guiding you here, you will perfect your life and you will see Krishna. This is a guarantee, not I am giving, Krishna is giving. So please try to chant regularly. Please try to revise whatever you have been taught. Please try to digest it and share it with other people who are unfortunate. The whole world is full of unfortunate people because this is Kali Yuga. So because we are fortunate, why? Somebody helped us to get this knowledge. So we have become fortunate. So it is our duty to share with others and make them also fortunate. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu desired us to do. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Let us take the blessings of Srila Prabhupada, and with this let us close our session. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.